My favorite job in the world is being an innovation chef. That's not what's going to change your game. It's retaining employees and executing what you have currently beautifully. That's what's going to change your game. Without a culture that retains employees and trains them and rewards them and loves them and giving them the tools they need to execute, it's all for naught.
Well, welcome to another edition of the Culinary 360 podcast. We're your Ignite Chef team. I'm Robert.
I'm Ryan. And I'm Chef Luke. On today's episode, we'll be chatting with Chef Karen Kaehler. Karen grew up in Miami and worked at a variety of kitchens in the South Beach area. She's a CIA graduate and is now an accomplished chef in many areas. Most recently, a consultant and corporate chef to various national chains like Red Robin, Village Inn, Baker Square, Boston Market, TGI Fridays, as well as cruise ships, culinary school instructor, and various other food operations. Karen is one of my go-to chefs for any new ideas or problem solving or new innovation I have in my kitchen. Today we cover topics from her early kitchen roles, being a woman in the culinary field, some of her favorite kitchens that she worked in, and what she's been up to lately. Let's hear what she has to say. Well, Karen, thank you so much for joining us on our Culinary 360 podcast. I'm beyond excited that she's able to join us today.
Thank you. The honor's mine.
I've known Karen for, a long time. We were talking about it, at least 10 years, if not longer than that.
At least.
So, like I said, I've known Karen for a long time. I know a lot about Karen, but why don't you give us a little bit short bio on yourself, where you're from, why you cook, where you've cooked.
I grew up in South Florida, in Miami, and actually my whole adolescence, my passion was horses. Sorry, it's a food show, but always had a yearning to have a farm. And anyway, I went to school in Tallahassee, hotel restaurant. I studied hotel restaurant administration, and I worked in the cafeteria. I didn't have a car, so I was kind of stuck on campus, but I worked in the cafeteria. And as a lot of people do, I had to choose a major, and I really did some soul searching, and I realized I was super happy working in a kitchen. And so I went into hotel restaurant administration. And when I graduated, I went to the CIA. And when I got out, I went back to South Florida and worked in hotels, restaurants, clubs, worked for the cruise lines, worked on South Beach before South Beach was ridiculous. So I was there at a really fun time.
Right.
I mean, I'd refer to it as pre-AIDS, mid-Coke. I mean, it was crazy in Miami, okay?
What was, one of your most memorable restaurants or places you worked at down there on South Beach?
I worked for Norman Van Aken on South Beach.
Very nice.
He had left Key West and he came to Miami. He opened a restaurant. It was called Stars and Stripes Cafe in the Betsy Ross Hotel. I think the Betsy Ross is still there, but he's now obviously gone on. And he just opened a restaurant in Orlando, which looks phenomenal. That was pivotal because he was doing such cool, innovative stuff. You know, he was so dedicated to Florida and the Caribbean and using the freshest and the best. I mean, he's such an easy guy to work with. He's got a wonderful nature. Like probably many of you, I had worked for chefs that...
The opposite?
Yeah, when you're coming up, some of these gentlemen from other countries, you know, they were quite violent and quite drunk and quite scary. But back then, I sound so old school.
And even more for a woman.
Yeah, but back then you had a strong sense that you were paying your dues and you wanted to learn everything you could from this guy. And there was I'm older, but there was no, how dare you? You know, I have rights. You know, there was none of that. It was like...
Yeah, you put up with it. Yeah.
Right. So working for someone like Norman Van Aken was refreshing, a breath of fresh air. I used to say to myself, either I'm making really good money or I'm learning a lot. So I wouldn't stay anywhere more than a year and a half. You know, I mean, you learn everything you can because you really weren't making any money anyway.
Right.
But you would learn everything you can from every chef you worked for. And it was a luxury because you could afford to live and have, you know, a line cook job. But so anyway, when I got to a certain age, I said to myself, you know, I don't want to just do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to be standing in a kitchen when I'm 50. Well, even, you know, I don't want to, you know, I want to do something more. And so I went and taught for 4 years at Johnson & Wales in North Miami. That was really, it was wonderful. Because the energy and the optimism of the kids is infectious. And it was a great time.
I can only imagine the change of pace too. I mean, it's very different, right? It's such a different environment, a classroom versus a kitchen.
Oh yeah.
You know, when I first moved to Colorado, I don't know if I know I've told you this story, probably told you like 5 or 6 dozen times, Karen. I had a job where I was working at a, you know, fine dining restaurant at the Flagstaff House during the day, or sorry, at night. But during the day, I was working as a kindergarten aide at an elementary school. And so I had these two very stark, different, you know, worlds, like coming from kindergarten and then driving up the hill to the restaurant.
Especially the language that's being used in the kitchen.
I definitely have to bite my tongue sometimes on the playground. I mainly did like playground, you know, assistance, and I don't know. I played dodgeball with the kids and stuff. And
I can imagine you like Billy Madison just throwing dodgeballs as hard as you could at children.
Oh, totally. Well, I had a rule. I could only play dodgeball with the foam balls that like you could only throw them like a foot or two, and then they would flow down. And I had to be on my knees. So here I was, like out in like the sandbox, more or less, on my hands and knees, throwing foam balls.
Oh, that's fun.
Karen, how hard was the adjustment going from the kitchen to the classroom? Because we kind of talked about this changing when we changed jobs. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and you know, it was a big difference.
It is, but one thing that really helps, that helped me, and this is South Florida, and so everything is really fast there. Luke, you've been down there enough to know it's the energy. The more energy you have, it helps inspire the kids. You know, you got to keep things going. If things get slowed down and you're in a classroom or you're in a lab, it can just kind of veer off. But when you're teaching, you kind of develop, I'm going to say a shtick. I mean, you've got to have jokes. You got to have comebacks. You got to be ready. You got to keep them entertained. And this was in the late 90s. Okay. But the thing also I want to say is most of my students, a lot of them were from the Caribbean. They're African American. They were a very diverse group. And that helped too, because it was very exciting. And we explored their backgrounds in cuisine as well. Now, when I came to Colorado, I taught 2 semesters here because I didn't have a job yet. And the Colorado students were quite different. Oh, yeah. They thought I was insane. Yeah. They really did. They really did. They were like, what is with this? But so anyway, taught for 4 years. Then I had an opportunity. I was between marriages and between mortgages. That's what I say. And I wanted an adventure. So I went and cooked it in Antarctica.
Nice.
Oh.
I met my husband down there. He's an aircraft mechanic, and he was down there taking care of the planes. But I was there for a season, and I met Brian. We came back from Antarctica. I went back to Johnson & Wales, and there was the head of culinary at Royal Caribbean Cruises. He was looking for an assistant. So I went to work for Royal Caribbean for 2 years, and that was amazing.
Yeah, I bet that was fun.
It was an interesting experience.
Were you just working in Miami then, or did you go on the ships and?
Yeah, about a week a month, I'd be out on the ships.
Okay.
Doing training. I did materials for the for the service staff, describing food. I helped write menus, helped with training. It's such a different world.
Yeah.
No, I bet.
Because, yeah, a lot of those chefs grow up from the time they're like 14. They are working on ships. That's all they know.
Yeah.
Luke knows this story. And again, this was like 2000, but I remember sitting in meetings with all the executive chefs from all the ships. And I was the only woman there. And I remember a guy reaching over and covering my mouth, basically saying, "Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about."
Wow.
I know. This was before Me Too. I was like, okay. I mean,
You're like, whatever.
I've always tried to approach this industry with a sense of humor. I've never been like, and I mean, I was cooking, usually the only woman,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of, I never really cared about the language or the jokes or any of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
I feel like if I've proved myself, I'm not saying I'm one of the guys, but we're all working shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to be very flexible, and you got to have a sense of humor. You can't take yourself too seriously. So, or you're really going to be a miserable person anyway.
The best kitchens, I was just going to say, the best kitchens, best teams in those kitchens. I mean, it's very communal, right? You become close. And when you're working with family, you don't hold any punches back either. And I think, not to say that what those chefs were doing to you was okay, because obviously that was not.
Yeah. And a lot of it is cultural.
Right. But, I don't know, the things that I would say to like my brothers compared to the things that I would say to, other people that maybe I'm working with, probably two very different things. Right. And
oh, sure.
You kind of cut through the bullshit really quickly that way, which is good. I love that about a kitchen.
Well, that was one of the reasons, I wanted to be in a kitchen, because number one, I like working with my hands anyway, but I like the camaraderie. That's what makes it. And I mean, I can honestly say, and I know I'm talking about days when Luke and I worked together, I was usually the one with the offensive jokes. Luke was always very careful to be respectful and not say anything inappropriate. And more than one occasion, he's corrected me, right?
See, I had that happen with me. I was a chef for Snooze for a while, and one day I'm working Expo and I look up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a full female kitchen. Every station I have is female.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not hold back on me at all. And I was like, you guys are more like, and I'm an absurd person, absurd.
Yeah.
And things they would say to me, I was like,
oh yeah.
Do you kiss your mom with that mouth?
I know. Absolutely. When I got hired at Johnson & Wales, I was hired by their kind of the guy who took them into the, he basically built this culinary program. Robert Nograd, phenomenal man. But he hired me because he was getting so many female students and he didn't have any female chef instructors. I was sort of a spirit animal to a lot of those female, students. And some of them would say to me, "Oh, chef, I want to work in a kitchen with all women." I'm like, "Oh, no, you don't. No, you don't." I mean, because they're young, they're young girls and they're real feminists. And I'm like, no, and they always wanted to join female chef organizations and things like that. Which is great. But my philosophy is we're working shoulder to shoulder with men. We need to be we're on the same playing field. You can't go off and do your own thing. I mean, so I encourage them to join the ACF. If you're going to be a professional, you need to find the biggest, strongest organization you can be a part of.
There we go. We should get like a plug from the ACF. We should get some sort of sponsorship for you saying that. That's cha-ching.
So after, so Brian got a job in San Francisco. And I thought, I don't want to spend my whole career in South Florida, but it's like, oh crap, I am. Look what time it is. So I moved to Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
sent resumes everywhere, just everywhere. And then I got a call from Boston Market from their head of culinary. And I had stupidly, I had applied to a director job in their test kitchen. I mean, I didn't. And he called me. I think he was so shocked that I had the nerve to apply for this job. But he called me and we talked for like an hour and a half. And then I went in, I cooked for him, and they created a job for me, a manager job. So,
Oh, nice.
Bob Karisny, I will always,
Oh yeah, Bob.
always be phenomenally. And he is my mentor. At that time, McDonald's owned Boston Market, Chipotle, Fazoli's, and Donato's Pizza. And they held on to them for 6 or 7 years.
Uh-huh.
Never really did much with them. And then at a
right.
certain point, McDonald's, for whatever reason, they looked at their numbers, they looked at the franchisability and everything, and they said, no, we're done. So they sold Boston Market to Sun Capital, massive layoffs. And that was that. And then after Boston Market, I went to American Blue Ribbon Holdings, where I met Luke, and my life changed.
Forever.
Forever.
Look at that.
So sweet.
Oh.
See, insert heart emojis.
Yeah, I know,
here.
right?
That's why we need sound effects and like emojis, like a heart sparky. Oh,
I wonder if one of the Valentine's ones.
And so they moved to Nashville, and they kept Luke, and they said goodbye, bye. And then, but then that turned into Red Robin, which was a dream job, best job.
so
I
they
would've
brought
stayed
in
there.
Luke, and you got fired. So Luke is the reason why you got let go from the other.
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
That is not
Luke.
how it went down.
Wow.
Yeah. No, you know what? It worked out for the best. I can honestly say. And Luke, I don't remember why you came and interviewed. Oh, Farouk was leaving.
Yep. It was when Farouk was leaving.
Farouk left. And so Luke interviewed for that position. I didn't say a word to anyone. I thought,
Well,
if he's gonna get this, he's getting it on his own.
If she had, I probably wouldn't have gotten the job.
It was unanimous. Everyone said, "Oh, that's our guy."
That's kind of what we did when we interviewed him too. We're like, yeah, we want him.
Yeah, and then December of 22, that ride sort of hit a brick wall.
It did. Yeah.
Well, new leadership, new direction. And like I've said this to a million people, if it was only me that got let go, I would have been devastated. But it was me and 57 friends all in one morning. So
wow,
we all kind of,
Yeah, we could hold hands through it all. It was good.
I think we've gotten closer, all of us, through it. But since then I've been, I just finished a month of consulting with a restaurant chain. I spent some time cooking at a hospital, mental health hospital, which was really, really interesting. Very interesting.
So I know this. There's another little snippet in there of a place that you worked. So you worked at was it a prison? It wasn't a prison.
Are you talking about the minimum security place?
With the kids.
Yeah. After Village Inn, I had 2 gigs where I was teaching as a chef instructor. And one was at a minimum security facility for teenage boys, age 14 to 20. And I taught the vocational piece, the culinary aspect of it. And then I also taught at a training program for women who are living in poverty, teaching them to be like prep cooks and, teaching basic skills so they were employable. Both those jobs talk about jobs that are good for your soul. Those were really good. They really humbled me and grounded me. It just felt good to connect with people. Working with teenagers and young adults at culinary school, that's a whole different person. But when you work with people who desperately want these skills, so that they can have careers. That's what feels really good. When I was at Boston Market, I went back to school because they paid for 90% of your education at the time. And I got a master's in adult education because I love teaching adults culinary skills. But that job at that minimum security facility, I never laughed so much. These were kids. It was a blast. I loved it.
They were the babies. Karen always refers to them as the babies.
Yeah, they were. But these were kids who, I mean, when they're in this facility, they have nothing. I mean, they are stripped of everything. Being in the culinary program was a huge get for them. They just loved it because we made some pretty cool food.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of heartbreaking, though, because most of them, when they got out, a lot of them came from gang families and backgrounds, and they would go back.
Right.
But you got to believe, you gave them a brief shimmering moment of, I can do really cool stuff. I have, you give them confidence and hopefully some belief in themselves outside of their typical life back home.
Karen, that culinary program, was that more to teach them life skills so that they could cook for themselves when they got out, or was it trying to get them a career?
It was to introduce them to culinary as a vocational possibility. They had, and I talked to them about apprenticeship. Because even though I'm a product of culinary school and I've been involved with culinary schools, apprenticeship, I think, is phenomenal. A guy I met when I was getting my master's, he's a chef, and he and I and three other guys, we started an apprenticeship program here in Denver, kind of to compete with the ACF one. It's still going strong. And the ACF program is, I don't know if it's still going or not, because that chapter closed during COVID. It's called the Rocky Mountain Chefs of Colorado, and they partner with some 5-star hotels, and it's a phenomenal program. So I would share that with these kids at the facility. And I talk about apprenticeship to anyone that'll listen. Much like you guys, people are probably always saying, my kid wants to be a chef. What should he do? I'm like, do a freaking apprenticeship, because you'll save yourself tens of thousands of dollars, especially if they finish it and they're not interested.
Well, and you may save yourself some time too, because the apprenticeship path is, more direct into like actual working life and all of that, and experiencing what that life is like.
Absolutely. Especially if you're going to work for European chefs, which is not as common anymore, but they all grew up in from an apprenticeship path. And, Escoffier, back there on my wall, hey, buddy, he would roll in his grave if he thought people were sitting in classrooms to learn to cook. No offense to your program, Ryan, but, you just get right in there and start getting paid, but you've got a chef over you who's overseeing your education and your abilities, somebody who's constantly evaluating you and moving you around, bake shop, butcher shop, whatever.
I love that idea of cooking, though, of the internship and stuff. When I would hire cooks, I'd always go, how much cooking experience do you have? They're like, I cook at home, but I just really want to learn stuff. I'm like, well, you're hired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to teach you. I want you to grow. I want you to...
Blank slate.
Yep. Don't have to correct them, or they get offended when you do try to correct them, or, oh, my chef wants it this way. It's like, this is just the way it is. Hire on personality.
Yeah, exactly. Attitude is everything. The skills can be taught and changed and honed. But give me someone that's fun to be around for 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all that matters.
And they want to be there too, right? I mean, like somebody that actually has the ambition to do it, right? To actually be there and do it.
It's like piggybacking on what you're saying when you talk culinary. It's like, you bring that energy. You got to bring that energy. Same thing with the kitchen. If there's no energy, everybody's going to go slow. The food's not going to come out right. if you keep the energy up and you got people around you that are going to support it, then your kitchen's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it really is. I mean, I'm not bringing things, well, I'm not back to sports, but it is so much a team sport. It really is. You have to put the good of the team above your personal,
Right.
whatever. When we win, we all win. And on the bad days, we got each other's back. And I'm sure I'm correct when I say that's probably why you guys are in it too. I mean, because that's what we love,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, probably like you, Luke and I have this conversation. We used to have it a lot. You go to a really good restaurant. It's dinner, and you can see the chefs in the back, and you get all misty, and you think, "Oh, I want to do that." But the reality is,
No, you don't.
not anymore. Maybe not. In my 20s, yeah, it was a good time.
Right.
But now you can appreciate what it takes, to put on a great meal.
I would
Right.
always say, can you taste the dance in your food?
That's good.
That makes no sense. I'm like, we dance when we cook. We listen to music loud. We dance. We sing along.
Yeah.
We get the food out. People are like, can you taste the dance in your food? They're like, how do you taste dance in your food? I mean, it's made with love.
You just know.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the front of the house, just the way the place is maintained,
Mhm.
what that energy is. What the priorities are of that place.
100%.
Yeah, it's weird. You can feel, I don't know.
You can feel the energy in a restaurant when you walk into it.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. 100%.
Karen, you and I, we've had a couple of degrees of separation because in the 90s, I was working for an equipment manufacturer, and I did a lot of the training on their combi ovens when those were installed for Royal Caribbean. That's how I know Fritz. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I would board a ship in Finland or in Seattle. I'd have to cruise over with them and do trainings, or if they put new equipment on, like in Vancouver, BC, or in Seattle or something, I'd go on the first training up into Alaska and do all of that. Funny story is we had one training class where we brought all of the cooks to the factory, and this is back in the Midwest, and it was wintertime.
Mm.
And so most of the cooks on these ships are from the Caribbean, India, the
None are
Philippines.
American. Yeah.
Right. And they're coming from Miami.
Yeah.
They all showed up without any coats
Oh my gosh.
and
Yeah.
no socks. So we had to go take them to Walmart and buy them socks and coats and gloves and hats just to get them through this.
Get them out of the car.
My favorite part of the ships was, I had full access of the ship, and I could eat anywhere I wanted to.
Yeah.
I would go hang out with the Indian cooks and eat their because they would cook for themselves instead of going to the employee dining room. So I'd go eat Indian, then I'd go eat Jamaican, and I ate my way around the kitchen and didn't go to the restaurants.
One of my first gigs there was when the Voyager of the Seas, she came out.
Okay, yeah.
At the time, it was the largest cruise ship ever.
Yeah.
And this is a funny story. Were you involved with the Voyager of the Seas?
I think I was.
We went to Finland, to Turku, picked her up, and her sister ship was almost done. She was in the next bay, and it was really cool. We left at like 4 a.m, and Voyager honked her horn, and her sister honked back.
I don't remember which ship I brought back from Finland, but I did the same thing. Our ship was still under construction. They were still doing the interior of the ship, the woodworking and the stairs and all of this other stuff. So
that might have been the Explorer of the Seas was the next one.
Yes, it was the Explorer, right? And so we take off and we're going, and all of a sudden the captain tells all of us that he's slowing the ship down and we're going to be 2 weeks late into Miami. And we didn't have cell phones at the time and all this.
No.
So because they were so far behind on the construction, they slowed the ship down. We had to stop in the Azores to get more supplies because we didn't have enough supplies. And with the exception of the kitchen,
Yeah.
they didn't have the bar open for the first week.
Oh.
And kitchen, of course, we had our own supply.
Yeah.
So that was no big deal. The chef sent me back, basically gave me a bar for my room.
Yeah.
And so I was all good. They opened up the bar right before we got to the Azores, and the ship drank the ship dry in 2 days.
Jeez.
I am not surprised.
Yeah. And so
No one's
they had to go get
driving,
more supplies.
you know?
Yeah. Oh my God. And then we hit 40-foot swells by Bermuda on this thing.
Oh.
And I was up in the windjammer watching these swells come over the front, holding onto the railing. And as the ship would go up and down, my feet would come off the ground, and I'm holding onto this thing. It was like some sort of carnival ride. It was pretty awesome.
For the size of those ships to have that much,
Yeah.
that's an incredible storm, because those ships are like, it's like the Ritz-Carlton. You know what I mean? They're that big, they're huge. But yeah, I had a friend that was on the Explorer. She was doing food safety.
Okay.
And she found out in a really embarrassing way that there are cameras everywhere.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Anyway, enough said. I'm not going to say anymore. And I shouldn't talk about it because somebody might listen to this podcast. And so, anyway.
We only have like 3 listeners, I think. It's okay.
It's okay.
I also did equipment support for Boston Market when they were in Colorado too, and so they also were looking at combis, and so I was in that kitchen many times.
Yeah,
I don't remember who owned them at the time.
If it was from 2007 to 2022, it was Sun Capital.
Okay.
Yeah. Last I heard, when I was in Texas last week, I was looking to see if I could find a Boston Market, because I still love that brand, and they're all closed there too. I think they're closed everywhere.
Given your vast experience, right, in different areas, cruise ships, hotels, schools, prisons, whatever you want to call it, right?
Mental health facilities.
The equipment, the variety of equipment that you have probably worked with is probably pretty substantial. Talk a little bit about the equipment that you've seen throughout your career, and then like things that you're seeing now. And
when I talked about the man who hired me at Johnson & Wales, he had been with them, I'd say 50 years. Okay. He designed all of their campuses. Amazing man, Robert Nograd. He had lost his whole family in concentration camps. And he used to say, if I ever live, I'm going to be a cook, because they always eat. Okay. I mean,
that's pretty wild. Yeah.
Amazing human being. When he got out, a young man, he went and joined the Israeli Navy, and he became their head chef. Went to the US, and he basically took Johnson & Wales, which was a small school, but he took it to what it became. Mm-hmm. And when he hired me, he was probably in his 70s. I'll never forget the day, and I don't remember which company it was. They came and did a full demo on new combis.
Oh, wow.
Nograd, when he saw the technology, he started to cry. He's like, he was just, and I thought, he's a true chef. I mean, he saw what the capabilities were. When they talked about how it was possible to feed 1,000 people in 20 minutes virtually, do all your prep the night before, the retherm and everything. And, you imagine this guy, he's like, I really, I've had such regard. And that's why it's fun to visit the Ignite kitchen, because Luke, I mean, just when you think you've seen the coolest stuff. No, I'm serious.
I didn't even pay her to say this, guys.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean it. I feel like Robert Nograd, when you see the capabilities in light of the labor constrictions we have now, it's phenomenal. I mean, right. Why wouldn't you take advantage of this technology? I worked in convention hotels, in the 80s or whatever. But, you know, it's to get a cold plate of garbage chicken and rice. I mean, don't even bother. But when you can give everyone, you know, hot, fresh, beautiful plates in a huge volume, that's something very beautiful about that. It really is. I had an experience early in the year consulting for a company. And, you know, they really believe that, and look, I'm all for innovation, you know, culinary innovation, but that's not what's going to change your game. It's retaining employees and executing what you have currently beautifully. That's what's going to change your game. Innovation. Look, my favorite job in the world is being an innovation chef. But believe me, and Luke knows I'm talking from the heart, without a culture that retains employees and trains them and rewards them and loves them, and giving them the tools they need to execute, it's all for naught. I mean, just stop with the innovation. If you can't do what you've already got on your menu beautifully. And like I said, a lot of that is giving them the tools, especially when training and retention is so expensive. If you can make it as simple as pushing a button and getting beautifully cooked food, you know, it's not that you hire a lesser employee. You just are able to do more with and for that employee than you ever did.
You know, you mentioned this before, you know, a 10-hour shift. Maybe this means that they can work an 8-hour shift
Yeah.
and have the quality of life. And we've all been there where, you know, you're doing 6-day weeks also. And it's, yeah, like you said, we just make that day in the kitchen just a little bit easier. Maybe people will want to come back to the kitchens.
I'm saying this to you three because you're all chefs for more than a couple of years. But I guarantee you, you can remember every chef as you were coming up that put their arm around you and said, you know what? You got talent. You got this. You're good. You're fantastic. We don't do that anymore. We just wring people out. If you can actually tell them, you know, let them know how incredibly special they are and that you want to see them succeed. I mean, what you get back for that, it's phenomenal. I can remember, and there weren't that many, trust me, there weren't that many. I mean, I was out of culinary school for 5 years before I even applied to be a sous chef somewhere. And that was because another chef said, oh, you got this. Go for it. You know, I was just so scared. You know, you had your toolbox or your knife roll, and you always had your little what was a repertoire?
All the little notepads.
Yeah.
Splattered with sauce and oil. And
I used to buy address books because they're already alphabetized. And no matter where I worked, I would keep all my recipes, you know. Everything I learned, I would put them in my little books.
That's such a good idea.
That's awesome. That is a great idea.
Yeah, I keep them in Ziploc bags now so the mice don't gnaw on them. If you live in the country, you're going to have field mice. I mean, but I've seen some of my pages of my good key lime pie recipe all chewed up.
The house on the prairie.
Yeah, yeah.
Another topic that I was really hoping we would get to today.
Food service equipment.
No, we did that. Come on.
Okay.
We're just friends now, right?
Okay.
We're just friends now.
Yeah.
One of the times that Karen and I worked together, Karen, as you can tell, Karen, she's a very caring, she's passionate about young people in the industry, specifically our industry, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, making sure that people are, I don't know, treated fairly and are given a fair shake at things. And I'm not a big reader, right? I don't typically like sit down and read books or like that, but Karen wanted to start a book club.
Oh yeah, we did.
The whole purpose of the book club really was to kind of breached some pretty tough topics, social injustice, racial injustice, all sorts of different things that were happening in society. We did a lot of books on tape, because our drives obviously can be pretty long.
We had really good conversations, which everybody really bared their soul.
Right.
Acknowledged.
For me, I feel like our whole restaurant food service industry, this was not the case, I think, years ago. But I think now it's more like this in that we have so much more diversity in our kitchens. We have so much more, acceptance and, this whole community. And I think people are so much more open to and, learning about other people's, challenges and, what's bothering them and what's not bothering them, what makes them happy, what doesn't make them happy.
Well, kitchens always are welcoming to everyone.
I don't know, because it's a family, and part of what keeps you from being biased, whether it's racially or sexual identity, whatever, is when you really get to know people and love people that you work with, you're not so fast to, make blanket decisions about a group, because we work with everybody. That's one of the greatest things about this industry.
Yeah.
Anyone can join, anybody, and it's great. Yeah. I'm very grateful for this career. You can do anything. Right. You can travel. Yeah. You can do anything you want.
Some of us travel all the time. I'm pointing to one of them.
You went to, was it Indiana?
I'm in Iowa, Muscatine, Iowa.
Oh, really?
Something else, yeah. Karen. Yeah. One of Robert's. So we have this program called Culinary 360 plug.
Right.
Where we are consultants, right? And we get out there in the field and we do stuff. And one of the ones that Robert did, was with a school district the most recent one was Iowa. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going back there next week on Sunday. I'll fly in and I'll spend the entire week with them for one more week. So
wow.
We did 2 weeks of cook chill training, got everything implemented there, and then they wanted to go on their own for a little bit and see how they did. And then now we want to try to implement some new menu items and some new things. And so I'm just going to go back to be their safety net.
And you were supporting the school district?
Right. Like everybody else, they've had some challenges with labor and everything else coming out of COVID and all that.
Sure.
And they were able to get some bonds passed, and they built this wonderful $6 million central production kitchen.
Oh, that's great.
They spent about $2.1 million on kitchen equipment. And the whole point is that they want to be able to make really fresh food in this CPK and then send it out to each one of the schools around the town, because you can't make your own fresh bread in the school.
Oh, yeah.
And they're making fresh bread at the commissary,
Oh, my gosh.
Everything is from scratch. Cool? Yeah, everything's from scratch. And they want to get even more new menu items on and keep that going. And that's the whole reason of the central production kitchen. So, yeah.
That makes me think of your guest was she from what school? Well County?
Oh, Save Rain.
Oh, that was fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. To see what you can do for, for school districts. The numbers are awe-inspiring.
Yeah. And if we can inspire the kids when they're little to start eating right and trying different foods and all that, now it goes on to throughout their life, they're making healthy choices, less obesity, less healthcare issues and all of that stuff. I mean, what we started doing while I was at this school was I had just done some techniques to show the cooks how the ovens work. And they're like, oh, wow, you know what? We want to start making that on our own, and we're going to ship it to the school and do samplings, and everything that's received well is going to then go on to the new menu.
Do their little own consumer focus groups. That's great.
Yeah, I did like roasted Brussels sprouts, and all the people that hated Brussels sprouts are like, oh, well, I dig these. I would eat that. We could serve this to the kids. They would eat this.
That's phenomenal.
So yeah, it's really great when everybody starts getting excited about new menu
Yeah,
items
imprint on those little palettes.
and tasting things that they're not used to. And because we know that there's so many busy parents and families out there, and there are so many school districts around the country that the kids only get fed at school. And we got to give them the best food that we can, at the school. And maybe, maybe they'll get inspired. And, when they become a teenager and the parents are out working at night on their second job, the teenagers can cook something healthy and nutritious for their siblings.
That's so great. I just love that. I mean, especially in these rural communities where there probably is a lot of fresh produce readily available.
Mm-hmm.
Get them some cows. What was her name? Katie?
Katie. Yeah.
Yeah, that was inspiring. That was so inspiring.
I will let her know that she is an inspiration to you.
No, really. It's a question of why not? Let's do it. And she just made it happen. It's not, oh, we can't do that. We've never done that. I love those stories.
Well, Karen, this has been great.
I have appreciated you guys from afar on LinkedIn. Now
now you're a part of it.
That's great.
You're part of our motley little crew.
You're talking. So it was great to have Karen on. Like I said, I've known Karen for a while now. Karen's been in my culinary life for at least the last 10 years, if not a little bit longer. Cool person. I love the story about Antarctica.
Yeah.
I always love listening to Karen talk.
It's amazing how when we start talking to people, how our paths have kind of crossed. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure I met her on a cruise ship at some point when I was doing trainings. And I think I probably landed at the Boston Market Kitchen, like right after her. So, it's just those few degrees of separation.
That was my first time meeting Karen, so I don't know if our paths ever crossed. I only know through Farouk.
But it does sort of speak to like our industry is really quite small when you think about it, and the people that are in it. You worked with Farouk. Farouk's a great friend of Karen's. All the different people that have kind of intertwined into all of the different jobs and places that we've all worked. I mean, everybody has, some sort of background like that. I think in some industries, Karen mentioned about, working for a kitchen for a year and a half and then kind of being done, right? Like you experience it, you learn as much as you can, as fast as you can, then you kind of move on. Like that's a very accepted way of going through this industry, right? And I think that's kind of cool. I mean, it's other industries, it would probably be looked down upon. Like, oh, wow, this person can't keep a job down. Like to be honest, I think somebody told me that once about myself.
Yeah. Or I know many people, they're like, okay, hey, it's time for you to leave this kitchen. Mm-hmm. You've accomplished what you need to. Would you like me to call this person or that person and set you up?
Yeah. Getting a recommendation to move.
I like the different ideas of putting people in different spots in a kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you've mastered this. Let's cross train you on this and get you over here.
Yeah.
Keep that staff as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, then, I mean, they have a little more value in themselves too, and they can do so many more things, have more knowledge.
Yeah.
Ryan, you ready to spin around the room?
I can't. My kitchen's too full of equipment.
Oh, no.
I know.
I can't do it.
It's wonky in here. I could try like a small one, like
maybe you just spin around.
That was Culinary 360, and then I can go back this way and like that was Culinary 360, and we're out.
That was perfect.
That was a good one.
That was awesome. It's got to change a little bit. That way they know we're not using the same one.
Whoa.
Now we're just going to make people sick.
Now you look like you were on that ship that I was on in Bermuda.
Speaking of cruise ships, check this out. Whoa.
Nice.